Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan and thanks for joining us for our Wednesday update for April the 19th. High pressure is dominating the weather in both New Zealand and Australia, but there's low pressure in the mix as well. And while it's much warmer than average in New Zealand this week, it's going to be a different story next week, especially in the south. Let's take a look and see what's going on at the moment. So the two main high pressure zones, there is the second one moving in here from the Indian Ocean into Australia, and then there's the first one which is still parked out to the east of the Chatham Islands. This one's not moving very much, and its location means it's pulling this subtropical airflow down and across parts of New Zealand. And if you don't have a subtropical airflow, there's a good chance that your wind is coming out of the northerly quarter. So nor'westers, northerlies, and northeasterlies. That is pushing temperatures up well above average by day and by night for, well, the whole country really, but especially northern New Zealand, where the overnight lows have been around the 18-degree mark for the past couple of nights and a couple more nights to go, especially around places like Auckland. Different story over in Australia, Adelaide and Melbourne, and a bit later on, Hobart, going to be feeling this colder change or cooler change coming through for you. While we're talking about wind, the solo Trans-Tasman yacht race is nearly over. You can see the boats almost coming into Brisbane. Look at the wind. It couldn't be a better setup for going from New Zealand or going from New Plymouth to Brisbane with a southeasterly flow the entire way, fairly brisk in the middle here and lightening up as they move into Queensland. You can Google them here, take a look at the live tracker. It's quite cool to watch. Let's have a look at the temperatures as well. I've been telling you it's warmer than normal. Today's departure from normal and tomorrow's one basically the same, but you're certainly seeing more of the red showing up on Thursday. That means the daytime highs are 4 to 8 degrees warmer than they usually are at this time of the year, and the overnight lows are fairly similar, if not even more above usual. So that is thanks to that high that's parked out to the east. But I also mentioned there's some low pressure in the mix as well, up to the north. That's going to bring in a little bit of rain through central areas where it could be quite heavy. We mentioned this the other day around Takaka and Nelson. You're talking around about 70, 80, 90 millimetres of rain. It could even go over 100. That's enough to cause slips and some localised flooding, and that same area of rain kind of brushing through the Kapiti coast as well. So from about Hokitika up to about, let's say, Levin, that area in there is at risk of some heavy rain over the next few days. And this is from 9 o'clock on Thursday morning, so from tomorrow morning for the next 3 days out. So let's take a look at the forecast. There is the culprit that's going to bring in that rain we just talked about. You can see some of it already there on Thursday at lunchtime, New Zealand time, with that high to the east still encouraging that mild northeasterly airflow across the North Island and just brushing the very top of the South Island. Meanwhile, high pressure is the main feature in Australia, but with the anticyclonic wind going around it, you'll notice there's a southeasterly. That's the one that's helping those yachts zip along in towards Queensland, but it brings in a few showers from Sydney up to Brisbane and maybe a couple further north as well. Doesn't really change a lot in Australia on Friday as that big high moves closer to you. But in the New Zealand area, the high to our east moves a little further away, and that encourages that low pressure zone to move in. So now you get that heavy rain building up in the northwestern corner of the South Island, and then it'll gradually slide through basically Cook Strait. And there's a little bit of spillover into the east. I said yesterday very casually that the whole east will be dry on Friday. I wasn't quite accurate. Canterbury's got spillover from that area of low pressure. Rainfall totals aren't huge, 5 to 15 millimetres when we last checked. Have a look at ruralweather.co.nz. It's the best for taking a look at those local rainfall figures. And then we've also got the storm up here near Rarotonga, driving in gales and heavy rain to some parts there, but it is drifting slowly away from you. Now here on Saturday, that is the low coming in from the Tasman. Closer version, you can sort of see what we mean by from about Levin southwards and Hokitika northwards. That's the area where that rain is moving through. Canterbury, not much for you on Saturday, just a few drizzly light falls. It's really the lower part of the North Island seeing the heaviest. Now in the upper North Island, that's a brisk northwesterly wind. It's going to pick up as the day goes on, and there might even be a couple of isolated thunderstorms or at least downpours in that humid sort of northwest mix. Over in Australia, not a lot going on, and the more zoomed in map makes Melbourne show instead of Torquay. I love the comments on YouTube about that. It's the zoom. When you zoomed out, it says Torquay. When you zoom in, it says Melbourne. So I have no idea why it does that for Melbourne. It doesn't do it for any of the other main centres, but there you go. As we go through the weekend, so that wet weather in New Zealand moves off the North Island. Here's a change. Sou'westers coming in. Auckland in particular, Coromandel, Northland, and even some other parts around Bay of Plenty and eastern Waikato have had a very windy nor'easter blowing for days now, since the end of last week, actually, Friday last week. So here we are 9 days later, and finally in comes a sou'wester, and down here, going around that high over Tasmania, up comes the next cold change. So here on Monday, what a change that will be. That blue line measures air thickness. So the red one on the north shows the tropical air north of that. The blue one shows sort of polar air coming up. So you're going to notice Monday's temperature drop in a number of places, especially the North Island, which has been so much warmer than usual, and a very windy sou'wester blowing through there, gale force in some exposed areas. And then by Tuesday of next week, that southerly blast out to the east, it's just affecting the eastern North Island, dry everywhere else. We might be getting those frosts coming back. We've hardly seen them this month, but frosty weather likely to return to New Zealand's South Island on Tuesday next week. But it's warm over here in Australia ahead of your next surge of cold weather, which is just going to brush Melbourne, Torquay and Hobart. So that is the forecast through until Tuesday. For more details, go to our website, weatherwatch.co.nz. We have a daily news update with the top 3 weather headlines, and we do that every single day of the week. So please do check that out. And of course, all of our weather maps and localized, hyper-local rainfall totals for wherever you are in New Zealand. That's all from me. See you again on Thursday with our next update.